Hi, everybody. Welcome to GW Center for Integrative Medicine, a Zoom podcast slash YouTube channel. I'm your co-host, Dr. Kogan, medical director of the center and also associate professor of medicine at George Washington University. So today's video is all about magnesium. Why we're doing this today? I like to use several sources for news about medicine, and one particular one I like is called MedPage or MedPage Today. I'll make sure I give you the links for the MedPage, as well as, of course, link to this particular article I'm going to bring up. And so just most recently, MedPage had a publication about magnesium for sleep. And it's got sparked by a pretty interesting TikTok phenomenon. So there's a sleepy girl mocktail that went viral on TikTok a couple of weeks ago. And it sparked a lot of interest. Well, why would you take magnesium powder at night in combination with tart cherry juice and then prebiotic soda? And is this real? What is this based on? What is the evidence, etc.? So what I decided to do here today, instead of giving you a lot of evidence, I don't think it's really useful, actually, because there's plenty of evidence for magnesium beneficial for sleep. But instead, I'm going to make this extremely practical video. I'm going to talk just a little bit about how I think about magnesium, not just for sleep, but in generally. And subsequently, I'm actually going to walk you through my favorite products. Why am I doing this? Well, there's a lot of confusion. People often misunderstand that magnesium is not just critical, and at least 10 to 20% of entire population is deficient, and probably 50 to 60% insufficient in magnesium and should be taking more. But there's a lot of confusion as to sort of what form of magnesium to take, right? So there is at least 4 or 5 different oral versions. Then there's a whole bunch of different topical products. You can also take magnesium intravenously. And so sort of what is the best approach? So what I decided to do is to go as following. So let's first concentrate on the importance of magnesium. Magnesium is a critical element, and it has 2 particularly essential functions. So one, it's a basic electrolyte. If you drop amount of magnesium intake substantially enough and your serum magnesium level drops out, you may end up with a very big problem. You can have a arrhythmia, or you can literally die from irregular heartbeat. So that's an electrolyte function. And then the second is probably even more important, since most of us will rarely get into a territory of a problem having such a deficiency that you don't have enough electrolyte, magnesium electrolyte in the system. But a lot of us will actually periodically get insufficient or actually deficient in intracellular magnesium, where it's in some ways even more important. And the essentiality there is that magnesium is a cofactor for all kinds of pathways. It is even a central element in making all of our energy in what's called the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. So when we make energy in every cell of our body, magnesium is critically important as a cofactor. So let's talk about testing deficiencies and sort of why is it critical to understand this. When you go to a regular doctor and you get routine blood work, typically magnesium may be included into standard blood work in the serum. And there's a problem. The serum magnesium level is maintained very, very tightly. What do I mean by that? In order for that level to drop out, you're going to have to be profoundly deficient in total stores of magnesium, because the body will prioritize to keep serum magnesium normal. Otherwise, as I mentioned, you're going to have a really big problem, like a cardiac arrhythmia. And so we're seeing critically low magnesium level in only a few types of patients. So we see them critically low in hospitalized patients who are especially in intensive care unit. About 60% of all inpatient, all ICU patients will have magnesium deficiency. Alcoholics who are admitted to the hospital, up to 80% of them will have magnesium deficiency during admission, because when you drink a lot of alcohol, you kind of burn through magnesium and your magnesium demand are increasing. And otherwise, if you're walking to the hospital, to the patient, to the doctor's office in outpatient, and your blood work gets checked, it's very unlikely they're going to call you back and say, oh, you were deficient. However, there's another test, so there's a whole bunch of series of tests, and they're covered by all insurances. They're easy to order, but you're going to have to ask your doctor. And that is serum, not serum, but magnesium red blood cell level, or what sometimes we call magnesium RBC. And again, I'll make sure I'll enter all of this in the description to today's video. So magnesium RBC can be routinely checked. A lot more people going to have a borderline low, or frankly low level of magnesium RBC than the serum magnesium. My estimates is if you set your parameter for normal magnesium a little bit more aggressive, so instead of more than 4, maybe you set it more at 5, which to me is roughly where I want most of my patients to be, then it's upwards of about half of all the patients I see will have some borderline insufficiency of magnesium, and they're going to benefit from adding magnesium either from the food sources or taking them as supplements. So what kind of problems we're actually seeing when magnesium drops low? Well, lots of different pain syndromes, constipation, lots of spasms, lots of eyelid twitching, muscle twitching, like restless leg syndrome sometimes can be very effectively managed with magnesium, and sleep. The article that sparked this whole video, this whole TikTok craze is actually based on the fact that indeed magnesium for sleep is very effective. Why? Well, because you need to have magnesium to make melatonin and serotonin. It's part of that cascade of production of neurotransmitters. It's one of the key functions, one of many, as I said, there are 300 functions that or so magnesium has in our body. So with that in mind, critical for sleep as well. I did mention constipation on purpose. We'll come back to that. And also magnesium is critical for performance. So if you're an athlete or you are doing a lot of physical activity and you're not taking enough magnesium, it will hurt you. Your performance will not be on top of the game because all the muscles require a lot of magnesium for synthesis of NAD, or it's a nicotine dinucleotide. It's an actual energy molecule. It requires magnesium as a cofactor. So with that, let's do this. Let me first walk you through one particular issue, and that is the actually what brands I use and kind of how I think about this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to bring it to this page. So I kind of decided to make a list of my favorite products, and I'm going to go down through them in no particular order, starting with oral. And we're going to cover why particular products, why would you use, say, magnesium malate versus magnesium citrate versus magnesium threonate, etc. I'm not going to be able to cover every single magnesium out there because I want to keep this video under 20 minutes as usual, just not to kind of overwhelm you. But let's start with malate. So malate is a wonderful general source. It's very, very good to include if you have a chronic pain and you want to try something for chronic pain and chronic fatigue, those two. That's where I go with magnesium. Powders are always preferred because of the cost. So the cost of powder would generally be lower. So this is one I like. And if you take a look, so you would need to take a scoop to get 500 milligrams. So what does 500 milligrams of magnesium mean? Well, the typical daily intake or typical daily dose ranges from about maybe 400 to 600 that you're supposed to take in. Notice I'm not going to say what is required daily allowance for magnesium because I don't believe in those numbers. I think most of us will need a lot more than that. Yes, there is some individuality. I think most patients should be taking between 400 to 1,000 milligrams of magnesium a day. And if you have higher or lower demand, that number may be a little bit different, but that's a general statement. So you will notice then, so that was magnesium malate powder. There are, of course, capsules. So this is one I like for capsules. If you look here, it's going to be a lot more expensive. There's 2 capsules and it's 360 milligrams if you take 2. So in order to get 500 similar to powder, you would need to take 3. And so then it's only 40 days supply versus with the powder, this was 250 grams. And if you take a teaspoon, which will give you, it's a total of about 2.5 grams, there's 100 doses here. So that means that this will last for 3 months at the cost of 1 month versus capsules. So powders are always a lot cheaper. That's why I wanted to show you that. So next we'll go to the chelate. Magnesium chelate in some way, kind of similar to glycinate, is probably one of the most neutral forms. It's really, really good for people who want to take magnesium oral, but they can't tolerate other forms. What does that mean? Well, unfortunately, particularly citrate can cause a lot of diarrhea. And we'll talk about that in a second, because as it can cause diarrhea, it can also treat constipation. So we'll come back to that. But you have to be careful. Any forms of oral magnesium, unfortunately, can upset the stomach. Chelates and glycinates have the least propensity to it. Also, chelate probably has the highest absorption coefficient. It's a very important concept. I'll come back to it in a second, but what does it mean? What it typically means that almost 100% of this type of magnesium will end up in your bloodstream, versus if you take magnesium oxide, which I'm only going to mention one, and you will not find it on the list of my favorite products, not any form of oxide, because only about 10 to 20% of oxide will get absorbed. So if you're taking it 400 or 800 milligrams of oxide, you will get a tiny fraction of it end up in your blood, versus if you take chelate, it's very close, I think closer to 80%. Now, other forms may be absorbed a little bit less. For example, the citrate, which is very, very good source. So here's the capsules of citrate, which are really well priced. And you see it's also 100 milligrams, but it's absorbed not as effective or not as efficient, lower bioavailability, what we call. Again, I mentioned citrate because we love to use it when patient comes in with magnesium deficiency and they're also constipated. In fact, often I would just use citrate for constipation as one of the first lines, maybe first or second, and often in combination with fiber, and maybe also in combination with increased hydration, better fluid intake. So magnesium is way up there in my list of preferred first line treatments for constipation. And of course, also if you're magnesium deficient, it would be a great source. So the powder for the magnesium citrate, again, as I mentioned, always will be a lot cheaper. So this is a 240 grams of citrate. And you will see that now here, teaspoon gives you 300 or equal to 3 capsules compared to that one. And this would be roughly a very typical daily dose. Remember, you're still taking a lot of magnesium with food. It's not unusual to get 400-500 milligrams if your diet is very good in magnesium-rich foods. Now, I will not talk about magnesium-rich foods. The video will be too long, but I will give you a link in description on which foods are very high in magnesium. So if you love chocolate, you like mangoes, those are great examples, very high in magnesium. Okay, so let's talk about glycinate next. So I have glycinate example here for you. It's a pretty well priced at about, I think this is 120 milligrams per. Glycinate has one very unique feature. In addition to threonate, which we'll talk about specifically, it's very neutral. It doesn't cause diarrhea, and it's very good because it can able of crossing blood-brain barrier a little bit easier than other forms. So you will get more magnesium if you're trying to take it for sleep, and particularly if you're trying to take it for things like anxiety, for brain fatigue, and you want to get more magnesium in the brain. That's a good source. Okay. So let's come back to the threonate. Now, the threonate, sometimes we call it Neuromag, Integrative Therapeutics, which I think has one of the better prices for high quality product called Mactane. Doesn't really matter whether you get Neuromag by Life Extension or by Designs for Health. I don't think it really matters. Now, in contrast to other forms of magnesium, you're going to see something unusual here. It's going to tell you there's 2,000 or 2 grams of magnesium threonate. But notice just above, despite that, there's only 144 milligrams of elemental magnesium. So it's much, much lower dose. We would not use magnesium threonate to replete someone's magnesium deficiency. We will only use this to boost the memory, to boost the cognition. In my opinion, it has some benefit, but it's not as effective as a number of other herbs If you've been following our work, you know that we have the whole what we call RECODE, Reversal of Cognitive Decline program, or PRECODE, Prevention of Cognitive Decline program. And we do use L-threonate there quite a bit. But again, it's not necessarily the most powerful product, but I wanted to bring it up here because this is the one that has the best penetration into the brain. So it has the highest coefficient of crossing blood-brain barrier and reaching highest concentration in the blood and in the brain too. Okay, so next is everybody's favorite. So remember I mentioned there's a whole article and whole TikTok drama about magnesium for sleep. Well, this is generally very common brand, and the brand is called Natural Vitality. And their product called Natural Calm, it's extremely popular. I'm showing it here for you, but you can find this product anywhere on Amazon, in Whole Foods. It's extremely common. Now, in contrast to other forms, this is the carbonate. So when you take the teaspoon of it and you drop it in the water, it's going to immediately dissolve with this nice looking quick bubbles that's going to disappear in a second. And it's very easy to take. And why carbonate? Well, carbonate is very, very fast acting. It's very quickly absorbed. It's very quickly reaches blood-brain barrier at significant percent, maybe not as great as glycinate, but it absorbs a lot faster. So you will get that boost for the sleep, particularly if you're having a hard time falling asleep, faster. That's why people really, really like this product. For those of you who absolutely hate powders or capsules, they do have gummies. I think everything is now available in gummies. I probably wouldn't prefer this. Look, this is citrate, so it's not going to work as fast. It's going to work a little bit slower, and you'll have to take a lot of gummies to get to the same 300 milligrams. So you'll have to take, 3 gummies at least, if not more. So, and of course, it's going to be way more expensive. So this is $30 for 120 gummies. If you buy the powder, you have a pound here for $40, and in reality, it'll be cheaper with my discount. Again, I will put the links to all these products in the description, and if you're interested in ordering them, there's going to be a way to let you know how you can do that. So this is the citrate, and this is the calm. All right, now let's switch. Before we go to topicals, I believe I covered all of the forms of oral that I wanted to cover. And then we're going to go to topicals. But before I do that, I want to talk for a second. I'm going to stop sharing. I want to talk about IV magnesium and why is it so good. Well, if you end up in a hospital in some horrendous disease, God forbid that happens to you, it's very, very typical. You will get different IV solutions. If you in intensive care unit, for example, most people will get fluids of some sort, and magnesium would be very commonly added because magnesium often becomes deficient in a critical illness. And so, of course, the most direct, the most effective, and the fastest acting form of magnesium would be intravenous. It's not unusual to get 1 or even 2 grams of magnesium as a slow infusion. There are some contraindications for that, but we do quite a lot of magnesium infusions at the clinic. We do them for a variety of reasons. They're wonderful for patients with asthma. They're wonderful for migraines. In fact, sometimes you can arrest migraine with an infusion of magnesium. It's not a very common method. Of course, anything IV is going to cost you a whole lot more than anything oral or topical. But nonetheless, for severe migraines, it's very common in the emergency room to get an IV magnesium. If you don't want to go to emergency room, call us. You can actually come in, and we do that service periodically. Of course, we need to know you and schedule you, but nonetheless, it's an option. And of course, IV magnesium, if you're very deficient, taking oral or topical magnesium may take many, many months before you fully replete the deficiency, versus if you take it intravenously, it could just be a couple of shots, a couple of infusions, and the deficiency is corrected, and then you can take lower dose of oral. So let's cover topical, because I actually feel like it's one of the best methods and the least known. So I put in 4 different brands here, or 4 different products. I'm going to quickly show you. So the Magnegel is very good. Part of the problem with topical, yes, it's my favorite form, but what's the problem? Well, the problem is that unfortunately, you don't get as much. Yes, you will never have problems with intestinal issues. If you take magnesium topically, you'll never get diarrhea or upset stomach. The problem is that even this product, which is one of the more concentrated, will probably give you at the most 100 milligrams per teaspoon of magnesium. Personally, this is my favorite product because it's a combination of L-arginine with magnesium in liposomal cream. You get even less here. It's only about 30 milligrams for half a teaspoon, but absorption is a little bit better because of the liposomal form. And arginine is a precursor for nitric oxide, and so combining L-arginine with magnesium enhances magnesium absorption, and L-arginine has its own additional benefit. So, and then there's this Trace Minerals, which is a great brand for all things minerals. And they have a couple of products. So this is one that I love. So this lotion, and this lotion is a little bit more potent. I believe it has a closer to 150 milligrams per teaspoon, although you're probably not going to take that much. You'll have to smear it over a pretty large surface of the skin. Now, the lotion has alcohol, so you're going to be very careful. In fact, I would say with every topical, you have to be super careful of not getting the magnesium in your eyes, mouth, or any mucous membranes. It's going to burn quite a bit and it's going to be uncomfortable. Lotions tend to be better for the skin. They don't leave a lot of residual. One of the problems with the Magnegel, when you apply it, you're going to have a residual. And some people would prefer to take a shower about 20 minutes after they apply, or just wipe it off with a wet towel, and either method is fine. And then this is the pure magnesium oil. The oil will have the highest concentration of magnesium. Again, it's going to leave you some residue, just like the Magnegel, but this is more concentrated. So again, I'm going to put lots of links into the video. If you have any questions, let me know. If you want to try some of these products, we would be happy to set you up for Fullscript if you're our patient. If you're not our patient, I'll put the link how you can become our patient, and also how you can order these products directly from the Fullscript. I hope this was helpful. This is GW Center for Integrative Medicine, and I hope everybody has a good weekend. We just had this gloomy weather today. Today is August 9, and we'll see you soon, covering all topics of health, how to stay healthy, how to live longer, vibrant, and all topics of integrative medicine. Stay well, friends. Goodbye.